Okay, so good job, Mendel. You said that a percentage is out of 100. So remember, we've talked about the fraction bar meaning some different things. And one of the things that the fraction bar means is out of. So when you see this, when you see that bar in between a numerator and a denominator, it means out of. And all percent means is out of 100. When we look at that word percent, what are our clues there that it should be out of 100? What do you think? Did I record this? I did. Okay. Uzziah?
So the per is through and then the cent of 100.
The per is through and the cent is 100. Oh my goodness. Great job with your cross-curricular connection there with Caesar's vocab. So you're 100% right. The per or the fraction bar means through and then of course 100. So that fraction bar means lots of things. It means divide, it means out of, it means through, and it means per. So all of those words kind of are similar in math. Okay. So I think we just went ahead and answered that. All right. So when we talk about percent, we are literally saying, let's say we've got 5%. We've got 5 right here. And then per, we read it from top to bottom, cent, 100 on the bottom. Okay. There's a 20% and a 15%. So we can express percents different ways. This symbol you're familiar with, that just means percent. Okay, so there are a couple different ways to find percents. And today what we're going to be doing is finding the percent of a quantity. We'll also be in this unit finding percent of a whole. We'll be finding the whole when we only know part of it. We'll be finding the percent change. We'll be finding sales tax and all kinds of things, all kinds of real world applications. This is probably the math unit that you are going to use most in life. How many of you shop? As like a recreational activity? Yeah, keep your hands up. Okay, come on, you guys. All right. So let's say you're at, what's your favorite store? Oh, that's not, no, the mall's not a store. What's the store? All right, GameStop. Lucy, what's your favorite store? Okay, oh, Target's a good one. Okay, Target, GameStop. Or how about like the Nike outlet? Does anybody go to the Nike outlet? All right, well, so you're at Target, or let's use Nike for an example, because I have 3 girls and they're all kind of all about, one in particular is all about all of the Nikes all the time. So anyways, her favorite Nike, I don't know, Air? What's a cool Nike? Air Force One, is that it?
Yes.
Or is that what you have? Okay. So she goes to the Nike outlet and her favorite Air Force Ones are 35% off. The regular price is probably something super astronomical, like $150. And she might have like $100. Who knows? Maybe she got $100 for her birthday or something like that, but they're 35% off. So she's at Nike and she needs to determine, can I buy these or should I wait? Maybe the end of season sale will be 40% off. So she needs to be able to do that math in her head in order to make an informed decision, right? How many of you have ordered coffee ever, or like ice cream? Let's say you go to Churn or you go somewhere and you order ice cream. Churn is the best ice cream in Fort Collins. Yeah, but Grace works at Churn. Whatever. I'm not here to argue with you about what kind of ice cream is the best, but it's true. Anyways. All right. Put your shoes on. I was wondering what that green cloud was that was walking over here. You go to Churn, you go to Cold Stone, you go wherever to Starbucks, and you need to know how much to tip your server. 50%. I'd like to be your server. Yeah. Somewhere between 15 and 20 is typical, right? And it depending on what kind of counter. If it's a counter service, you might tip closer to the 15. If it's a sit down restaurant, you might tip closer to 20, but you got to be able to do that in your head. So this is just this is a super applicable unit that you'll use for the rest of your life. All right. So let's say we need to do this problem. We're going to find 80% of 120. And we've got a couple different ways that we could do this. And all of these ways right now that I'm going to show you are mental. Most of the math that we'll be doing in this unit is not mental math, but right now we're going to just demonstrate with some mental math. All right. Singapore Susie thinks of 80% like this. In her mind, she does 10% of 120, and 10% is really easy to find of anything, right? It's just whatever that number is divided by 10. So she realizes that 10% of 120 is 12. So then in her head, she just multiplies 12 times 8 and she finds 80%. And what's the answer? What's 12 times 8? What is it, Owen? Yeah, it's 96. Good. So she comes up with 96 on that answer. Singapore Samuel right here has a different way of finding 80% of 120. In his mind, he does 10% first, right? But he doesn't find it as easy to go from 10 to 80%. Maybe he doesn't remember his 12s. I don't know. But in his mind, he does, okay, actually what I can do is I can multiply 10% times 2 and I can come up with 20%, which is 24. And then I can easily multiply 24 times 4 because 20% times 4 would be 80%. Whoops. And if he's doing that over here, then 24 times 4 would give us the number that he wants, and it's still 96, right, guys? It's not going to change. Yeah, it's just a different way of finding it. And then Singapore, yep, that's what I was going to say. Singapore Samantha doesn't find the previous method to work very well for her mental math. So instead, she finds 10% in her mind, and then she doubles it and goes to 20%, and then she quadruples it and she finds 48. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say percent. She's finding a number, not a percent. And then she doubles that 40% of 120 and she gets 96. The point of that is that there are multiple ways to find this. We walked through how these students thought, what their thought process was. Your work is going to reflect your thought process. Okay. So let's talk about these two problems, 25% of 210 and then 95% of 98. See if you can talk about two ways to solve those problems with your table partner right now. Go. This first one first, 25% of 210. I think this one's probably the easier one. What are ways that you guys came up with to find 25% of 210? So what's one way? Mira, go ahead.
You did 10 divided by 30% of 210. We got 7.
Okay.
70, and then we did 70 divided by 5. And got
And then you did 70 divided by 5. Well, see, I think there might be a problem with that. And I think what it is that you're confusing percents and numbers. So you got 5 for your final answer?
we got 35.
Oh, you got 35 for your final answer.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think that's correct. Let's keep going. Let's estimate though. Mira, let's estimate.
Okay.
What's about a quarter of 200?
50?
50. And this is more than 200. So you're going to have to come up with an answer that's more than 50, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right? All right, so let's discuss this a little bit more. Oh, and what'd you guys come up with?
So we did 25%.
So, okay, but again, we're getting confused between what's the percent and what's the number, right? Right here, we've got a percent. Right here, we've got a number. So you said the extra 10%, but did you mean the extra 10? Okay, so what'd you get? 52%? 50, okay, so you did, let me see if I'm following you. You did 25% of 200, right? And then that equaled 50. Okay, am I writing it down correctly? And then you found 25% of 10? No, because you divided 10 by 5, right? So did that end up with the right answer? Not quite. Right? What's that?
When-
Well,
No,
but should I divide 10 by 10 if I'm trying to find 25% of it? Or should I divide 10 by 5 if I'm finding 25%? Wouldn't 10 divided by 5 be 20% of 10? I would need to multiply 25% times 10. So actually, let's divide it by 2. So right, that would be 5. Then divide 5 by 2. That would be 25%. So what's 5 divided by 2, Owen? Yeah, that would be 2.5. So really my answer is 50. Whoops, I wrote the wrong thing. My answer would be 52 and 1/2. So you had some good thinking there, but you divided the wrong thing. You divided by 5 instead of by 4. You need to divide by 4. Okay, that's all great. I think one way that I would probably approach this problem is I would probably do 50% of 210 and then divide the 50% by 2. So that would give me 25%, right? I would go down like 210 divided by 2, that would be 105. That's an odd number, so I know I'm going to get like a fraction for my final answer. 105 divided by 2 would be 52.5. Okay, how about 95% of 98? This one's a little bit harder. Did anybody think of a solution for that? Go ahead, Shafiq.
I'm just guessing, but is it 3%?
No. So if we're finding a percent of a number, let's back up a little bit. If we're going to find a percent of a number, we're not going to end up with a percent, right? If I ask you, what is 50% of $10? What are you going to tell me? 5 what? $5. A percent of a number is a number. It's like just like a fraction of a number. Remember, a percent is a special kind of fraction. So if we're finding a percent of a number, we should end up with a number, not a percent. So did anybody find a way to do this one? Not so much. Cameron?
This would be kind of slow, but if you could find 1%, you could
Yeah,
multiply that by 95.
you totally could, couldn't you? You could do, so let's see if 100% equaled 98, and you said to find 1%, 1% would equal 98 divided by 100. And then 95% would equal 98 divided by 100 times 95. Is that what you were thinking?
Kind of, but
You can do it that way,
Yeah.
for sure. That's called unitary method. And we're gonna do that in the next slide. I do want to move on, I think. We'll learn some different strategies here. For 95% of 98, that's kind of tough. What I would do, I would probably find 5% of 98 and then subtract that from 98. So I would think in my head, what's 98 times 5? Divide that by 10 and subtract it from 98. Okay, so unitary method, Cameron, this is what you were telling me to do. That's going to be one way that we're going to solve percentage problems. Again, today we're finding percentage of a quantity. So we're going to end up with a quantity or a number. We're going to end up with actual things, not a percentage. So our first problem says there are 80 oranges in a box. 5% of the oranges are rotten. How many rotten oranges are there in the box? Let's go ahead and underline what the question is. We want to find the rotten oranges, okay? Make sure that you're sticking with me, please. So am I going to end up with a number or am I going to end up with a percent, folks? Number. Okay. The first way we're going to do this is with unitary method. My whole is 80. Make sure you're following along with me, sister. Making sure that we write everything that appears up on the screen. Thank you. Ashley, please make sure that you're writing. Okay. One way I could go about finding what the answer was, is to just start dividing. I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 10 because it's easy to find 10%. All right, so we divide by 10 on both sides and we find that 10% equals 8 oranges. How do I go from 10% to 5%? What do I do now? Lindsay? I'm going to divide by 2. Divide by 2, and I'm going to have to do that on both sides. And that's going to give me the 5%, which is 4 rotten oranges. There's another way to do unitary method that I kind of prefer, but I'll show you how to do that in the future. Method 2 is to just set this up like a fractions problem. So remember, percent is a special kind of fraction. So what we can do is you guys already know how to multiply and divide fractions and do all kinds of things with them. So I would just set this up like a problem. 5%, 5 over 100 times 80 over 1. And then we can start cross canceling because who doesn't love to cross cancel? Oh my goodness, look at how many times I could cross cancel right there. Were you guys able to keep up with that? You want to see it again? It's so fast. I'm going to cross cancel the zeros. I'm going to divide both these sides by 10, cross off a 0 in that 80 and in the 100. Now I'm going to divide the 5 by 5 and the 10 by 5. And I got 2 on the bottom. Now I'm going to divide the 2 by 2 and I'm going to divide the 8 by 2 and I'm going to get 4. Now I have 1 times 4. That's a pretty easy problem right there.
Yeah, that's easy.
There are times, so either one of these is fine. There are times when you can only use unitary method. So it is something that you're going to have to remember, like know how to use. All right, here's another one. A school used 67% of a $9,800 donation to buy library books. Find the amount used to buy library books. What's my whole? What is 100%? Uzziah.
9,800.
Yeah, good job. 9,800. You guys see any like convenient ways to go from 100 to 67%? I don't know, Landon?
Divide it by 100.
Yeah, we could divide it by 100. That's what I would do. So I would take it down to 1%, find my unit. You guys have done this before. Do you remember this in 5th grade?
Yeah.
Kind of, you were rusty. Well, you have done it, but yeah, we're gonna have to get used to it again. So 98 divided by 100, and we can cross both of those zeros off, and we get 98. Now what do I do? Rajveer, I'm gonna multiply by 67. Great job. So in this step, I'm multiplying both sides by 67, and the left side gives me the percentage, 67%. When I multiply 98 times 67, I'm going to get 6,566. I'm going to trust that you guys know how to do the multi-digit multiplication on that. Actually, there'd be a really easy way to do that. Do you guys know what it would be to do this mentally? Rajveer,
You could do 90 times 7 and then,
you could do that.
90 times 6.
Times 60, yeah. You could do it that way. I think it'd be easy to do 100 times 67 and then subtract 98 times 2 or 98 times 3, excuse me. You would get the same thing. All right, method 2 is to set this up as a fraction. So if I'm going to find 67% of 9,800, how do you set that up as a fraction? What do you write? Can somebody tell me? What is 67% written as a fraction? McKinley? Yes, 67 100ths. And then we would multiply it times 9,800. We're going to get the same answer. Are we ready to move on with the slides? Do we all have that information? Okay. All right, go ahead and do numbers 1 and 2 on practice A from your textbook on page 82. Okay, number 1 said there are 90 visitors at an art exhibition. 20% of the visitors are children. How many children visit the art exhibition? All right, raise your hand if you solved this one using unitary method. Okay, Lucy, can you help me set this up with unitary method, please?
So
Okay, hang on just a second. Let me catch up to you. 100% is 90 visitors. Okay, awesome. 10% is 9. Good. Great job. How many of us ended up getting the answer 18 children? Good. Nice job, Lucy. Thank you. How about number 2? Who set this up with a fraction? I want to solve this the other way now. Okay, Ashlyn G, can you help me? Actually, let me read it first and then you help me set it up. A store sells 1,800 cell phones in March. 3% of the cell phones are faulty. How many cell phones are faulty? Go ahead, Ashlyn. You don't think you did it right? Is that what you said? Okay. Uzziah, can you help me set it up with a fraction?
Sure.
Okay.
So I just did it in my head, but,
Okay.
so,
Can you write a paragraph in your head?
Yeah.
Will you get credit for it?
no.
No.
I did 18 divided by 3,
Oh, okay. You did 18 divided by 3. All right.
6, then, since there's 2 numbers, then I got 60.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it. So if I'm finding 3% of something, that is not 18 divided by 3. 3% looks like this, 3/100ths. Okay, and then we would want to multiply that times 1800. Okay, so you're off by like a digit on your answer. So be careful, don't just start dividing stuff, all right? So you gotta, if you're gonna use this method, you need to show your work properly. And then if you show your work, then you're gonna be able to go back to it and be like, yeah, that's reasonable. So here's how we would set this up with a fraction. We would do 3/100ths times 1800 over 1, and then I can go ahead and cross cancel those. And what's 3 times 18, folks? Yep, 54. 54 cell phones are faulty.
That's a lot.
It really is, isn't it? Okay, all right, for homework tonight, you guys are gonna open up your workbook. You're doing workbook exercise 1. We need to talk about that first page.